I open the meeting,
We used to
7
just
o'clock.
bang on the wall, so.
It's actually late, 7:01. Administrator Matter, board, any report from the board?
Oh, you had a question on mosquitoes, didn't you?
No, I just wanted to point out in the correspondence, they've just basically changed the rules on how you have your property excluded from mosquito spraying.
Right.
Used to be you had to get to the clerk by March 1st, and now you basically apply to DAR at any time, goes into effect 14
14 days
later.
after that, okay.
Well, somehow they used to, they knew if you had bees, maybe they just saw them and they would ask if you wanted your land skipped due to the beekeeping.
Right.
I think they used to keep a record of the people who kept bees. and
Probably,
do that.
that's, you know.
But if you just
say we
don't
do it
like
every year.
spraying, or for whatever reason, you can now request it. It used to be a very formal process. Now it's much, and you'd have to do it like by March or something ridiculous.
Okay.
And now it's much more formal.
Where does the request go?
Department of Agricultural Resources. So there's a memo here.
And what did I
14 days in
see? There was
advance, you said?
Something else.
Well, I mean, whenever you, at any point you wanted to ask for a no spray,
Yep.
it goes into effect 14 days later,
Okay.
because they need to update their GIS and all
Memo?
that stuff. Hmm?
Do you have the memo?
It's in that package.
I didn't get it online.
They also, the animal inspector nomination, I thought we had done that.
Yeah.
Yes,
I thought we did too.
Yeah, I wasn't at the last meeting, but the meeting previous.
Yeah,
I remember
pretty,
doing that.
pretty sure we did.
according to Shelley, said, make a motion.
Unless there was a mistake made, I have no idea.
Just to make everything dry well. You could entertain a motion for that, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Make a motion, we appoint Phyllis Hightower as the animal inspector
Tower,
again.
Tower,
Hightower.
Second?
just Tower,
Tower?
Tower.
Oh, it's Hightower, okay. Phyllis Tower.
Like the pizza,
The wrong
like the pizza
person.
place.
There it is, that's it.
Any second?
A second.
All right, all in
I
favor?
think that's what you
Aye.
said, Gino.
All right, give it to her.
No, that's the inspector of animals.
Give it to the lady. Thank you. All right.
Phyllis has done it
Go.
for several years now. She does Boxborough, Harvard, I think Lancaster. She's got quite an area that she takes care
I
of.
thought we'd actually, when we did the motion before, there was some training for them. I thought we even put that in. Didn't we put that into place before?
I don't know.
Anyway, if we did, it's in place, if not, not a problem.
All right, last night I received an email from the gentleman over there. His name is Jeff. And this morning, early this morning, I went to see if there was any smell on Richards. I was there 7 o'clock. I walked, I ride on the car. I went there, and I saw the gentleman over there. He saw me early in the morning. I think his wife came out, and I asked her if she smelled anything. She said, well, they were not home the day before, so.
So I went to Jeff's last night about 2 or 3 hours after you sent the email. I was on my way back from Boston. I didn't smell anything. I talked to your wife. It was very windy. The wind was coming from there. As I left, I did get a whiff of something. It was almost like a pig farm smell. And I suspect what happened was those piles have been sitting all winter. They've gone anaerobic, and he broke them open to get rid of them. So I think that was probably responsible for the odor.
So I
Well,
spoke
they
to
should,
Jeff. and I-
are they loading? Maybe they're loading up.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be, I mean, it was a little surprised it's still hot, but it was very dry last year, so they
Well,
might be
they'll actually
behind.
catch fire.
Yeah, no, but I mean, usually by this time of year, the microbial action's done. But it was so dry last year, I know a lot of the compost facilities had issues where, you need moisture in there to make it work, and they didn't have it. So I don't doubt that it smelled. I did get a slight whiff of it right as I was leaving after I spoke to your
Like I
wife.
say,
but
I can't smell, so I'm no good
but I
to.
suspect we want them to get rid of it. They gotta break it open, and I think it probably went anaerobic during the winter. And yesterday was really the first nice day, so I suspect that's what was going on.
So I,
Anyway, I had a small conversation with the gentleman, and one thing leads to another. So tonight, I want you to, did you read this? You say yes?
yeah, Jim had
Okay.
given this last
I'm
meeting.
gonna sign it, okay? And
Yeah.
he's got until June 1st. Whatever is gonna happen after that, then we'll discuss it.
Okay,
But did we vote on it?
So
We did
one,
vote on it, actually.
We
We
did.
voted on issuing the order, so I don't think we need to
But
vote on
see,
the
there
order.
was confusion because we gave a verbal order and then.
We voted to issue
Jim-
an order, and I think it's administrative issue for Gino to do this. I do want to say for the record, and I don't want to hold it up, there was language in there about penalties, which you removed, Gino.
Well,
No, I'm talking.
yeah,
okay?
go ahead.
And one, I think that served two purposes. To let Mr. Halloran know that, I'm getting a picture of you signing this, Gino. Smile.
What are you gonna put in the paper?
Want to let Mr. Halloran know what those
You
penalties.
make those people laugh.
At least
Are we
somebody's
on
gonna make them
TV or
laugh,
what?
they've had a hard time.
All
Anyway, so I do think the penalties did a service to Mr. Halloran, he let him know what happens if he doesn't comply. I think it basically showed the board had some authority. So I don't wanna hold this up, because it's been a month now, but I do think it's, and those penalties don't go away just because we don't put them in the letter. So I won't be on the board, I'm not running, but if we hit June 1st and he hasn't complied, this board will have no choice really but to
You
administer
are
those
correct.
penalties.
You are
So,
correct.
so
Right now-
let me clarify that, because that's the one thing I noticed that was missing, was any language about penalties. What are the penalties, so they're on the record,
It's up to $1,000 per day, the
The-
board uses.
based on a
The
statute?
penalties are under the, I just checked it, the section 123. So although if you look at that paragraph, MGL chapter 111, section 123, that's where the penalties are.
Okay,
Right.
And so even though it doesn't say in here by referencing that, it
Well,
should
it
be.
had said in there, Gino removed it.
I
so-
know, and I had the same note on.
But
mine,
the
I-
penalties are actually up to $1,000 per day. The
Yeah.
board can do less than that, but not more than that.
so what's, just to proactively think about this, what's the process come June 1st? And he's not, what, is it a
June 1st.
board-directed motion?
Well, June 1st, we should have Jim out there verifying that these things are gone, and then thereafter verifying every single day that he's still in violation.
And have Jim note and record,
Note, record, take photographs, whatever he needs to
and
do to
then
prove that.
at our board meetings, it can be fall under administrative matters.
Right.
or board reports, and then it's a board vote to levy a particular fine.
Correct,
What-
and then I think Jim has the responsibility, I think he'll do to
He's
say,
gonna take over.
look, you're behind, as of today, they can start doing penalties, get rid of it ASAP. You know, and the board can use its discretion, but their penalties are on the books whether they're in the letter or not.
So I tend to feel, I thought that it was 1,000. It does say not more than 1,000, which leaves it open, which I think has been the problem, that there's been uncertainty.
No,
So-
that's what I said, it's up to 1,000, and the board
know.
can use its
So
discretion
if
whether
we're
it's 100 or
sending,
200.
I don't want to hold it up either,
Yeah.
but if we're sending the letter out, it would be good to nail it down now, so it's not coming back to
No.
us. Because it should say, there's a
Then-
penalty, this is how much it is,
Look,
and it will be levied, and then we don't have to vote on
one way
it.
or another is gonna go to court.
Well-
And the judge will determine the penalty.
No, that's
No,
not true,
no.
you know.
Yes.
No, it is not true.
Okay, don't argue with me, okay?
I'm not gonna argue, I'm
The
telling you the
question
way it
is,
is. The
we
board
are
has
go-
the authority to issue penalties.
Okay, well,
It's right
And then
here.
they can contest that in court.
Today
My
is-
suggestion would be that when that happens, if and when that happens, that the board can use its discretion in
Okay.
determining what that penalty is.
So and I'm fine with that, that can be a discussion, because there could be a number of things that play into this, right? It could be,
Whether.
it could be weather, it could be an incredibly wet spring, and it just, which, a couple weeks ago, it certainly looked that way, right? So it could be incredibly wet spring, which could delay it legitimately, if it's a legitimate reason.
I don't think that's likely, but
I-
we need to leave it open.
We
And
need to
that's where
leave
the
it
board
open.
can use its discretion.
That's what I'm saying. Or on the other extreme is, it's been perfectly fine, and he hasn't touched this, then maybe the hammer comes down, right? That's where the board discretion is, and I think
Yes.
you're right, and I think you've clarified it perfectly fine, that it's up to us to levy it, and if he wants to fight it in court, that's where the court battle is. It's not the court's decision to how much.
When I went this morning, was a truck there, so he's trying to get this stuff
Well,
out.
But
So
the
prove
thing
some
is
way
that
to
he's
June
been
That's
given
not what should be
deadlines
done.
before, and he hasn't
Yeah.
met them.
Yeah.
So whether it's weather or anything that's out of anybody's control at this point,
Yeah.
the idea of having an order
Yeah.
is to give a deadline and to make it very clear what the consequences are, and you have to meet it. If it was the first deadline, that would be one
No,
thing, but
and I
it's
think
not.
those, I agree with you.
So I
thought those
actually-
I don't think
feel-
anybody's suggesting there'll be a legitimate excuse, but
Yeah.
theoretically, the zombie apocalypse happens between now and June 1st, we gotta cut them some slack. I don't think that's gonna happen.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when Jim is doing the inspection, is this a private inspection, or is anybody from the public from our neighborhood?
It's
allowed?
private property, so, we can't allow others on there, that would be up to Mr. Halloran. We have, you don't have that. Jim's a public employee, so any of his records are subject to, public records law and all that sort of thing, but we can't bring folks along. So, but I do wanna make it clear, just because it's not outlined in those letters, those penalties still exist, and I think it's incumbent on the board to consider those very strong if he doesn't make that deadline.
Then they're gonna be back in front of us, and again,
Well,
rather than
hopefully,
just
everything will be
ending it
fixed and it'll be gone, and we
right
never have
now.
to worry about this, but this is what the purpose of this order is.
So,
But we get back to it, we had already voted on it, it's just a matter of him
It's an
signing it.
administrative
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he signed it.
Yeah.
I did want to bring up one other issue relative
Let them
to,
out.
to this property. The neighbors had asked if the, windrows have been moved within 250 feet of the, whether the DEP rules are. I called DEP and they said, oh yeah, here's the plan they gave us, you know, with the lines, and I said, okay, has anybody checked to see if they've been moved? And they said, no. So I asked Jim to go down there. Jim said basically, all of the, wells are outside of 250 feet except for the tenant's house.
Yeah, the house.
Which still isn't allowed. Jim will tell DEP that, that's their rule, not ours, but as far as your wells, though, Jim did confirm they're outside that 250-foot mark.
Thank you.
So it could be, we'll have to, monitor this or manage this, but, the first is a Thursday, the next meeting of the board after that's the 13th. The previous meeting of the board before that would be the 23rd of May. Sometime in that second part of May, just need to, make sure Jim, that, Jim
Go back.
needs to get out there
Jim's gotta be there the morning of the first,
the
I'm sure
morning
he'll
of the
direct
first
him
to
to.
take a peek and
Well, we
then.
could also ask him to routinely just see,
And routinely,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, that's
See
what
what's
I'm getting
going
at, so those, so,
just give when he writes up his little critique for the different things coming up, just ask him to give us an update,
Right.
so.
Okay?
Well, and you should be, if he hits it on the first,
Mhm.
and there's stuff still there, you need to have a conversation with him. Jim.
Okay. Okay,
Good question.
conversation over.
So does this mean that on June first, the board has to vote again to find out if there's gonna be a penalty? I don't wanna
Yes, I
come
think it
again.
does.
I've been coming for 4 years, I don't wanna come anymore.
I don't think that can be helped. I mean, hopefully this will all be gone, it'll be a moot issue. If in fact, when's our first meeting in June?
it would be actually, it's like a week and a half after the first, like the 10th or something like that.
You know, so if on June 10th, I won't be here, the board
The
meets.
13th, the 13th.
And they found out that he's, 13 days overdue, then they will have to vote to what penalty and how much to put in place.
But if we're getting updates too, we're gonna have a general idea what's
But
happening.
why can't we put the penalty in the letter? Why can't
Because
we
you've
do it
already
now?
voted on the letter.
It's not fair for
You
him
already
to
voted
find
on
out
the
on the
number.
10th.
Period.
Well, the board can vote to do it. I would vote against it because there may be circumstances that want to make us go higher, where he doesn't touch it between now and then, and we want to levy the full penalty. There may be circumstances, whatever, where we go with a lesser penalty. So I think the reason we're given such a broad range in levying penalties is because there is some discretion involved in this,
I just don't wanna come back and have it be $1.
you know.
And I'm being facetious, but not really.
So, I mean, the board could say 250 now, and that would hold, but I think that the purpose of the law of giving such broad discretion is because there are circumstances that could both increase or decrease it from 1,000. You know, if we
Okay.
have beautiful 75-degree days every day between now and then, and nothing
get it.
moves,
But the weather was supposed to be accounted for in the December 1st
Agreed.
date. Now it's 6 months more. I mean, if you can't figure out how to move that in 4 years, give me a break. I mean, you can't use weather as an excuse anymore. It's been 12 months almost.
Yeah, I think the discretion is, like I said, if it was the first time, that would be totally different.
well, you can make a motion for a fixed amount now if you'd like.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we put in $250 a day as the penalty. I don't have that's allowed by the cited, the referenced regulation in the letter.
I say wait until June 1st, and then we'll make a motion.
I think we need a second before we have discussion, Gina.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yep.
I have a question. So,
We're
We're in the
after-
middle of a
We've got to
vote
figure
here.
the motion and the
Oh,
second.
sorry.
and all that. Then- Now is when you ask if there's a second, Gina.
Yeah, as anybody wants to give a second?
I'll give a second just so we can have the discussion.
All in favor?
Well, we
Aye.
can have discussion.
So my
first,
discussion, I mean, I see where you're going, and I won't be here on June 1st. So part of it as well is it's a whole different board after then, so I think that board has to have it. From my perspective, and weather's an example, and I don't foresee any potential situation where he would have an excuse where he wouldn't get some penalty. I can foresee a situation where he completely ignores this order and we want to go to 1,000 instead of 250.
It's just gonna take so long to go through that process again.
Okay.
Well,
And
we
we
meet
have to stop
13
the
days
whole-
after the deadline, and that's when we start issuing the fines, and Jim will be in there. Anyway, from my point as a discussion, I think we need the discretion, and I think it's probably gonna be the discretion will come.
I agree.
Leaning towards a heavier side of a fine versus a lighter.
That's where I land. I don't wanna put a number in. I'm comfortable the way it is, because I would agree that I'd like the flexibility to be able to go to a maximum. If
If he completely
If-
blows
if-
us
if-
off.
if- Yeah, whereas we may be, and I'm not saying $250 a day isn't chump change, but $1,000 a day makes a statement, and I'd rather have that flexibility.
I agree.
Quick question for the board. So, as it stands now, you're set to meet, this is Jeff Schachter, 6 Richard Way. You're set to meet 13 days after the expiration of the order. If it is determined that, I hope it's determined that the board will levy fines then, are the fines then retroactive to June
Yes.
1st? Okay, so already he's looking at 13 days worth of fines.
The clock stops ticking on June 1st,
That'd be
I think if we're getting
$13,000.
Potentially.
updates
and
from-
beyond that, it'd
from
be
Jim
good.
Gareffi on a regular basis, we'd have, whoever's on the board at that time would have a pretty good idea what you're gonna do
There will hopefully-
when you come in on that meeting, so it isn't like, oh, we're surprised.
Mr. Yap, actually, you and the whole board decided in September, Richard was supposed to be providing those updates. And when I attended the meetings, the notes weren't in wherever they were emailed. And the board suggested that maybe people on the board go out and help Richard write a couple sentences and take pictures. Did that ever happen?
Not to my knowledge, I didn't. I've been out there to see what he's doing, see if he's moved piles and see if they were moving anything out. And that's where we came up with, everything was moved away 250 feet. I didn't get it out and measure it myself, but Jim Gareffi said it was beyond the 250 feet. And there was no activity on the piles had already cooked, if you will, and there was no chance of getting them out by December 1st, so that's why we gave him an extension.
He picked that date. Him and Boston Bark picked that date.
Well, I think it was negotiated with the
yeah.
board.
Yeah, but it was a plan submitted by him, by Boston Bark and Sherry.
Sherry. Well, I mean, they told us what was logistically feasible for them, and we agreed with it in this case. And then we gave them an extension, and I think we've all made it clear that an extension dies on June 1st and no later than that without penalties. As far as the emails, there was a snafu where we had a previous member who set up her own Littleton Board of Health at Gmail, and apparently he had been sending it to those, and that password went with her, so.
So,
One more question, go ahead.
so, Jim, your representative, who's gonna be doing the inspections, is this gonna be frequent inspections that he's gonna be, or just?
Well, I think we should ask him to do it once a week.
Okay, so there's a you stated there's a meeting on May 9th and May 23rd.
By going out once a week, it's gonna show Mr. Halloran that we're looking at it, we're monitoring it. Yeah, I think that's a good thing, and it also gives us an update to see what's going on, rather than be surprised, wait a month and.
As well as pressure on him, if it's a
So-
week ahead of
so-
time, and it's like, look, if you don't get it out of here.
So you'll know by the 23rd of May. If he hasn't done anything, then I think, is it
Oh,
possible then for the
absolutely.
board to indicate, hey, this is the heaviest fine that's gonna be levied on you within the next,
Jim's not gonna have that ability, that will
No,
require
but
the
the
board.
board
But
have that.
What Jim can say it on the 23rd is that, because we need to deliberate that in an open meeting. So what Jim will say is, you get a week, they can fine you up to $1,000. I've spoken to Gino, and he's very upset that you haven't moved it quicker, right, Gino? And basically, he can warn him about what could
Well, it's a-
potential impacts.
yeah.
But we can't tell him exactly what that fine's gonna be until this board
well,
deliberates.
but you're saying, it can be up to $1,000
Yes.
max if you're not
Yeah.
in compliance.
Yeah.
But even if we look beyond Littleton, I mean, he had to be fined $500 a day to get out of Concord. I don't understand why this is gonna be different.
Who does that letter go to,
Just
Gino?
put
Okay.
history.
Who does the letter go
Okay,
to, Gino?
So let me, wait a minute, I'm not done.
No,
Let
no.
me ask,
That was Vinnie, not Halloran, by the way.
yes, that
Oh,
was,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
different. So,
It's the same
just
thing.
to,
though.
just to clarify, from my perspective, what I'd like to see is, weekly Jim go out there, but once the first hits, daily.
Oh, once it first, he has to be out there
The
daily to
daily-
basically
right, so I want that
verify that it's
clarified,
not or
right.
it is gone, so we can levy the
Right, that way
appropriate
there's
fines.
no, right, that way there's no discrepancy or any argument
So
over
we're
what
gonna
is that.
recommend that Shelley
Mhm.
informs him with either an email or a letter, based on what we think about having him being Jim, go out there once a week.
Well, he'll get the letter,
Progress
and he'll get the order, and then Jim will, I think we should tell Jim to go out there and monitor this
I mentioned
ongoing,
it-
on an
I
ongoing
mentioned this
basis.
morning, I didn't mean to disrupt, I was trying to tell him to let you know,
Oh, okay, thank you,
okay? Thank you.
thank you.
All right, now,
Can I just add
one more,
quick
go
thing?
ahead.
So on the positive side, so if it does happen before June first, I know that you can contact us by law, but can somebody let us know that that this stuff is out? I thought that you.
Shelley
said
can
you could
contact you,
email
we
us.
just can't have a whole email back and forth
Okay,
exchange,
okay.
so.
So somebody will, Jim will pass the message on to.
If he doesn't, I will be personally contact the gentleman there that he doesn't like me. I will call him, he will come out from the house, and I will wait for him in the street, and I will tell him. How's that? All right, like I did this morning.
Whatever is legally allowed.
Right, okay. Now, can I close the meeting?
Well, we have to
Okay,
vote
any
on the motion,
discussion?
don't we?
Okay.
No, it's, the motion, I guess I made a motion.
No,
No, I made a motion.
We still have a motion on the floor
And
for
it was
$250
seconded,
fine.
so it's
It
up
was
for a vote.
seconded.
So now it's up for a vote on
So call for a vote
250.
on Aaron's motion, Gina.
All right, you calling, anybody second?
We have
I
a
We have a
second.
second, so we need to vote.
Okay, anybody?
So all in favor of Aaron's
All in
motion?
favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
I sustain, okay? I'm not gonna vote for it. We wait 4 years, we can give him another little break, and then when he, June 1st, then I will say yes.
You make
How many
me sick.
days?
Right now,
Days.
no.
Sick. Sick.
So I don't
Make me sick.
think, I don't think this has anything to do with waiting for him for 4 years, all right? In fact, it pushes me to the far extreme of bringing the hammer down, which is why I will, when you call for the vote of against it, you'll get
Well,
my
me, my
vote.
vote is free country, right?
Yeah,
You-
yeah,
you
yeah,
make
yeah.
your vote,
But I don't think your point is legitimate.
okay,
That
it's
we,
not,
that we should be easy on him because we've waited 4 years.
I'm not trying to be easy, because I can be harder too.
But
The
you
question is-
spent, I've been here for 2 years, you've spent a year and a half being easy on him.
So be that as it may, we have an order, it's signed, we voted on it. We have the potential to levy up to $1,000 fines. We have Jim out there monitoring it.
Right.
We have a motion on the floor that was voted on and did not pass, I believe, to set that fine at $250.
Well,
Is that
he didn't
correct?
ask for against.
I didn't hear a vote, I just.
Right. He asked for 4, and then he didn't ask for an against.
So we have one for Gino now. I think you're supposed to ask how many against the motion.
Anybody against?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So again, and I will clarify, I won't be here, but I think it limits us too much.
We'll
We're gonna go
invite you
Well,
anywhere.
back.
we'll watch,
Maybe
we'll
even
watch
higher.
it. Hey, it might,
Watch
it
us
might
on
go
TV.
higher.
Watch us on TV.
If he's gonna be starving, I'm gonna go higher than 250, I'm telling you right now. The question is, we say until June 1st.
Do we
We'll
have
see
a
what
hearing?
happens.
Yeah,
Tonight?
so I think we can move on, Gino?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you for coming.
Now that we're all pissed off. Come on up.
Your turn now. Hearing open a meeting, for,
We seem to be doing the same
173.
things over and over. Well,
Yeah.
Didn't we talk about 173,
No, we're talking about 237.
237?
yeah.
The deed restriction
Couple of
policy
them
was
are
on the
right.
agenda too.
We should go back to that,
Okay.
because otherwise we'll have this gentleman waiting all
Okay,
night.
that's fine.
How are you, Lisa?
Okay,
Not too late.
what do you got?
I think it is. You'll be a committee of 4.
Oh, you handled 63 too, didn't you? Foster Street?
No,
Okay.
Doucette Engineering did that one.
I have this feeling we're redoing
This is gonna
stuff over and over. I don't-
It's
I
similar.
think you've been on the board too long, Peter.
I know that, I know that.
Again, I'm Kirk Fitzpatrick with Civil Solutions, and I'm here on behalf of the
All
Bertha
right.
Duffy Trust.
Did you bring tube things? I
Actually,
think you did.
I talked to Shelley, and she
Fine,
said she'd
fine.
get one in your packet for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
So basically, we have proposed upgrade for the existing 3-bedroom dwelling. Right now, it's got, what's probably most likely a cesspool located behind the house with some type of an overflow. The house was built in 1948. It's the original system. So they didn't even bother with a Title V inspection. There's no way it's gonna pass. That area is known for having a higher water table, and the cesspool would be in the water table.
Geez, that's up on the hill too, isn't it?
No, not yet. I'd like,
This is, after you
back here.
turn down the split between Harwood and
Yeah, I
Padawan.
see it
It's-
here.
It's probably the fourth on
It's
your
still
left.
high.
It's on the right,
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's way up on
it's on the
there.
right.
Pretty high on the hill here, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's
I thought we
kinda-
did this one last week too. That was another one.
Yeah,
It's different.
they all run
So the
together.
topography of the lot, it's fairly flat behind the house, it gently slopes away, and then it gets much steeper towards the rear of the property. There's two new houses on Harwood Road that are behind it that were built by
All right.
Doug Shaw fairly recently, just to give you a reference of where
Yeah.
everything is. So we went and did 2 deep observation holes out behind the house, test holes 1 and 2. We had a seasonal high water table at 36 inches, and we had some observed water in test hole 1 at 54 inches. We tried to run a perk between the two, but by the time I got down to the depth required for the bottom of the perk, it was starting to get saturated, so we
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
run it. We thought was advisable to take a sieve analysis. So we did take the sieve analysis. It seemed like it was a pretty granular material, but it came back as sandy loam, so it's designed based on a percolation rate of 30 minutes an inch. So with that being said, we're asking for a reduction in the groundwater offset to 2 feet with the use of the Presby Enviroseptic. That allows us, in this situation, to avoid the use of a pump. It also allows us to avoid using the polyliner, because we'd never catch the fill going down the hill towards the back if we maintained the full offset.
Oh, you guys?
oh, no, I'm fine.
Yeah, everybody already goes?
Yeah.
So we're actually gonna raise the plumbing inside, make it by gravity to a new 1,500-gallon septic tank. It's gonna flow by gravity to a 15 by 42-foot Presby Enviroseptic leaching field.
So you're gonna use Presley.
Where was the old system out in front?
No, it's
Out
actually
back.
in the back. There's a cesspool right here.
Oh, yeah.
Probably some type of an overflow behind it. As I said, it was built in 1948, so everything's original.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think they'd go back that far, but. And Jim's remarks,
Basically,
See
town
the
water,
let me see what he had to say, I read it earlier.
Town water service comes right in the front of the house.
just of it is the town, the area of the town is served by town water, and the reduced amount of fill will minimize the potential effect of surface runoff from the site. So-
Well, he likes to see it go from, not to 2 feet, but 3 feet, but in this particular case,
I'm gonna give up on us on that one.
yeah, I think he's giving up.
We discussed it when we were out there, and he seemed amenable to the two in the situation, because it did make it by gravity, and it kept the fill from going over the edge of the slope.
2 or 3 feet would have what, put it into a pump?
It would've gone to a pump and a polyliner on the
Yeah.
downhill side of the system.
I think he was also concerned with the runoff if you raise it 2 feet as well.
Yeah, we'd also be asking for fill less than 10 feet to a lot line. So
Well,
this
I don't
allows it
have
to,
any.
the grade will come up, but it'll blend in with the grade at the back of the house.
I'm gonna make a motion that we grant the 2 variances requested for 173 to Hadwin Road, as shown on the blueprint, 3/2017. Number 1 is the request from the local board of health to reduce the offset from 4 feet to 2 feet. And the second is approval is sought under 310 CMR 15405 to allow the use of sieve analysis where percolation tests could not be performed.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. That permit, made its way
I
over?
think we signed one.
I think it went through.
Okay, just make sure they come by.
Just, that's right up there. I don't know. if it's-
I don't think they paid for you.
There was a note on one way,
Probably
still
not.
owe us. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make sure she comes in.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks for the extra coffee.
Have a
You're
good night.
welcome. You too.
What do you mean coffee?
Coffee.
I thought you said coffee. All right. Coffee, all right. Jeez, me.
That would've been Sherry.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Is that it?
We have the deed restriction policy to
Yeah.
discuss.
Did we,
Oh, yeah.
did we take care of the animal inspector?
Yes.
Yeah.
Twice now, I think.
That individual is,
this time
oh,
it-
you're right, you're
This time
right.
it's gonna go through.
Yeah, it's the third time the charm.
All right. All right.
So I have the 328 version. Is there another version? Lauren, you said it had changed somewhat, right?
Yeah, 328, but it looks different to me. It looks broader because my concern was in number 1, if an owner proposes the addition of space that would increase the number of rooms in the house. So that to me sounds like you could put an addition on or something over the garage. And I think what we were specifically looking at was refinishing basements.
Could be attics too.
Yeah, and this was broader than I anticipated.
So
I
is your
thought that
point,
we
you'd
would-
rather leave it to existing space being refurnished versus new
Yeah,
space?
yeah.
Oh, I don't think we ever entertained
We didn't really discuss it.
new space.
Yeah.
So
So I
Aaron's
think
right,
that-
She's
that
afraid
doesn't
it's some-
preclude new spaces.
We actually had that one on Gilson Road where they were building something over the garage.
Yeah, that was an office.
And I think we did a deed restriction on that.
Yeah,
But she's concerned about, building something on the side
Yeah.
properly. That's what she's concerned
But
about.
again, it's up to us to grant a deed restriction for or against for any reason we feel like it. We don't have to grant it.
yeah, so I wouldn't be in favor of granting something that was this broad, because I think that we can still give approvals when they come in if we want, but I think as a blanket policy, I
But-
think this is too broad.
I
But
thought the
the-
whole idea of this was Jim could use this to avoid bringing stuff into it.
Right, but the other issue too, you put something in like that, say, and limit it to the existing space, and I think we had a case where there was a teenager that was paralyzed, and they put on an addition.
Yeah,
And we did that through a deed restriction.
yeah, and we could still do that,
That
But
the
that would
bedroom
be-
count couldn't change.
and we could still do that,
But
but
she
this is a generic policy.
Right.
So I think as far as a policy goes, it's better to narrowly define it, and then we still have the latitude.
To say
To-
So
yes.
to
to
play
like-
devil's advocate, what difference does it make whether it's a basement or an addition?
It's a construction project, and I think that I would have to give it more thought of what would come into it, but I think that when you're expanding something, it's different than finishing a basement. Now,
It's a
some of the,
construction project if you do in the basement too, you still need a building permit.
yeah, but some of the things that we talked about, one of the reasons that you gave was because you didn't want people, it's more dangerous for people to redo their basements. Redoing a basement functionally is different than putting an addition on your house. And I think that granting, what we're doing here is we're granting variances. So if we're
Not
going
a variance.
No, this is
well,
a
a deed
restriction.
restriction, okay, but we are granting, somebody needs an approval from us to do
Right.
something. So I think as far as that goes, if we're gonna do it in a blanket, what we wanna do, the reason that this came up is that people were coming in with finished basements. So our discussion was very focused on finished basements, not on additions or any sort of increase. And it
Which
doesn't.
99% of the time is right. It's usually they want to, but like I said, they've also have attics
Yeah,
that they wanted to make a big playroom in the attic.
Put in a garage.
See, the problem is, years ago, everybody, including myself, had 4 kids. Now they having 1 or 2.
We're a lot
And-
smarter.
I know it.
Yeah,
I wished I had learned earlier.
we learned from your
Mistakes.
struggles.
But, and it used to be, the concern was that any way you could make another bedroom, you tried to do it. People were
Yeah.
putting bedrooms in the basements and stuff like that. We never really got too much into any additions. Like I said, on occasion, like we had that particular one where you had a person
Handicap.
that was handicapped and
Right.
they had to stay on one floor.
We have a special permit provision in zoning that allows
Yeah,
for
probably
an
just
accessory.
probably that.
So I get your point, I'm not sure I agree, but I can see it where perhaps we want to limit this to existing space and not, the renovation of existing space versus the addition of space.
I actually have so I'd like to get this clarified a little bit, because, and maybe I'm lost in the fog or something, because I think I conceptually agree with you in that, we'd want it, the purpose of this is to be able to have the discussion and use our discretion, but if we narrowly define this to existing space, now if we have someone come in front, we have a paralyzed or a handicapped
Right.
individual, and it is gonna be an additional space, but not more bedrooms, not more people. If we're so narrowly defined by saying existing space,
But we still have latitude to do that, though. We
But
can
you have
still.
latitude the
what
other way too.
So
Yeah.
what this does is it takes it out of our hands and gives the
Yes.
agent a policy by which he can make a
Yeah.
decision without us.
So in that case, they would come before us, and that would be too bad. It would be better if they didn't. But what I'm thinking is, you know, somebody, a developer, if somebody's selling their house, they could put on a big addition, and not call it a bedroom, sell the house. I mean, it happens.
For me, like
You
making
sell
an
'em.
in-law, like making an in-law.
No,
well,
because
this
you have to
specifically
go.
says not part of an in-law or accessory
I
apartment.
know that, I
So
know,
that's fine.
I know, but if you,
Aaron, what has to happen, they're not gonna be able to put an addition on until they go to the building inspector. The building inspector at that point
We'll kick it to us.
says, wait a minute, you're over the amount that your septic system is, you gotta go for the Board of Health.
I don't see any drawback here in narrowly defining it in the policy, because like we said, they wouldn't have to come before us. They can still come before, I mean, we can still grant it to them, but at least it gives some, it gives us some place where we can make decisions.
So my
depending on
issue
what
is,
what the
I
situation
think there's
is.
other elements that aren't spelled out here. We talked about privacy and closets and things like that. You could easily make an in-law apartment. I don't think it matters whether it's a new space or an existing space. I think it's how that space is laid out as far as privacy, closets, means of egress and all that stuff.
Thank you.
You know, I would
No,
rather
no,
have
no,
an
no.
addition that has feel much more comfortable with an addition that has, you know, a stairway going through it that removes the privacy and has no closets than a basement apartment, which this would allow. As this is reads, there's very little detail around here of what would preclude that room from becoming a bedroom.
Let me give you a case.
Well, it
Good
says will
point.
not be used as a bedroom or part of an accessory, in-law
Yeah,
accessory.
I'm not gonna use it as a bedroom, I promise.
Well, I mean, there's
But
any.
there's elements you consider in there,
Right.
whether there's privacy, means of
Yeah.
egress, you know, and that sort of thing that we talked about that aren't reflected here.
But
And
we-
those should reflect, in my
We
opinion.
have, I
those should
don't know if we did deed restrictions, but we've had bigger homes with 4 bedrooms, and they wanted to put on an in-laws apartment. So what they did is, because it was a 4-bedroom system, they took and tore a wall down in the existing house between 2 bedrooms, which made it 3 bedrooms, and you carried over the 4th bedroom onto the addition. And then I'm not sure whether at that point we had to do anything, because the room count changes a bit too.
Right.
You're still, it depends how the thing's laid out. If you got a bedroom and just a big room, you might have to do.
Having done
deed restriction on
construction,
that.
it's actually easier
And
to put
that's
that
on a
wall
new,
up.
that's new construction. And that's permissible.
So anyway, you say you wanna make a motion for that?
Well, actually,
No,
so just
I
to
think we're
keep
still
the,
talking about it.
Oh,
yeah, and I think to keep the, you know, Aaron, as I look at point number 2, I think I see now where you're, so point number 2 says that if, and anything that's not satisfied by point number 1, then point number 2 comes before us.
Yeah,
And that's where the discussion is. So that's where,
And then
all
the
right,
other-
it's an additional space because it's changing the footprint of the house, because adding on something to accommodate, you know, handicap member, whatever, then that comes to us, because then the health, number 1 gives Jim, the health agent, the authority. So
Number 2?
I guess I see your point a little bit more on that, on restricting it to existing, restricting number 1 to existing spaces, and then number 2, or in the case that the health agent doesn't agree, it comes to us.
See, I think it has more to do with the layout of the space versus
Right.
whether it's existing or whether it's,
well, I think it's
Newly
both.
constructed.
It's both. So what we're talking
We're
about.
saying something wrong here. First of all, this is not for him to make the decision.
no, that's what this does.
That's what this
It
does.
shouldn't.
That's the whole point of the policy.
Right, so we don't have to have a.
Uses a bedroom, the Board of Health agent upon his or her can allow the additional space. So this is so Jim doesn't have to bring this to us. So we're talking about situations where we've established a policy where we said, this is how we're gonna rule on these, so Jim doesn't have to come to us.
See, I didn't get that out of that, but I see what
That's
you're saying.
the whole point of it.
And I don't
I
think it
thought he
should.
was doing this just to make it universal
No.
for anybody that came up before us.
Well, that too, but at the same time, we've got people coming here, if we have a universal policy by which we're gonna approve it, then they really shouldn't have to come before us, I think is the point.
Yeah, we're spending,
Yeah,
or
it does.
wasting
I
their
just-
time.
I guess we
and
should have a little-
engineers'
Well, we can
time.
change it. I mean, we can have them all come before, but I don't think it should be additional living space. I think it should be
Existing.
a
And-
renovation, or not renovation, or upgrade, or.
No,
I
it's
don't know what the
renovation of
word is.
existing space. I disagree, I think it has more to do with the layout of that space than whether it's new or existing.
Well, I think it's both. So I think it's lacking definition in what you consider a bedroom, unless that's already legally defined.
Well, so if we define what's a bedroom, and then I would argue, okay, if we say a bedroom has to have a closet and privacy,
Window.
and they do a new construction that has no closets and privacy, then why wouldn't we just say, okay?
Because I don't think that, I don't know what would happen, but I don't see any reason to provide that sort of leeway in here.
But I don't see any difference between that and renovating a basement space.
Well, I think that I know that the reason this came up is because people were coming before us and talking about basements. And that's why we did this, basements, not anything else. And the way this reads, it covers a lot more than a basement.
Well, we've had people come to us with spaces above garages. We've
Well,
had
that's-
people with renovating porches, we've had people
Well,
doing
again,
additions.
That's
So the
fine.
And again, other than the fact that all we've talked about basements, I don't think that's a good reason not to consider a broader concept, so long as it meets certain criteria.
That's fine, they still can come and we can still grant it or not.
Right, I think point number 2 allows that. As
Yeah.
I continue to look at it, point number 2 allows if it's, again, changing the footprint of the existing dwelling. So point number 1 can capture basements, attics, walk-ups,
Right.
garage.
But again, I don't think it
Porch.
matters whether they change the footprint of the existing dwelling if we've got sufficient criteria to define what is and is not a
Well,
bedroom.
we
I
take,
don't necessarily like the idea of him giving approval to it.
yeah, I don't either.
Then why do we need to do any of this? I mean, I like it because we see a lot of people come in here with their lawyers, with their engineer, and
Well, I,
cost people a lot of time and money without much good.
I think what happened was, he was looking, as I talked with Shelley, if she had an existing thing, that she used the same form. This was after the Durkee thing, where they came in and they wanted to do something without expanding the system, which we allowed them with a deed restriction
Right.
to finish the basement. So I kind of think that he thought we were looking for him to be able to take some of the burden off us by doing that, but
I
didn't-
was.
I wasn't, I didn't, believe me, I didn't read this correctly.
So maybe, how about this? Maybe we can ask Jim to put some more detail in there about the conditions under which something wouldn't, the layout of the room, the privacy closets and things like that. From my perspective, I see a lot of people coming here spending a lot of time and money with lawyers and engineers, when if we could give them a policy and save some of our fellow citizens some time and money, I don't see a downside to that.
And frankly, our agenda time as well.
I disagree. I really feel like this needs to be narrow. We want to, once it's done, it's done. If we want to start,
No, it's a policy,
make-
so we can change it.
You can
of course
change
we
it.
can, but
Well,
it's
when
hard.
it's done, it's not done, then, right?
Can I finish? I know that we can do that, but once you have something down on a piece of paper, it's a little harder. And I think that it's better to make it narrowly focused right now. And then if we want to expand it later, we can. But there's no harm, and we're already making, we're making progress in the way of not having people have to spend that time and money.
So I agree with narrow focus. I don't agree that it should be to the footprint of the house. And I do see harm when people have to show up and spend half their evening here and spend however much
Well,
they
nobody-
spend, now can I finish? And paying a lawyer or an engineer or an architect to be here. That's harm. It costs money and time. And if we don't have to do that, why do it? And we spend a lot of time, in my opinion, here, having people come in and spend money without much benefit or need.
So there was a
I'm
discussion.
inclined to agree with that, but I still see issues with this that we probably would want to maybe even have Jim come in and talk about it.
I would agree with
Good
that.
idea.
I mean, I agree it's too narrow in that I don't think it, I mean, this, you could basically build a bedroom and just say, oh, it's not a bedroom. I mean, nobody cares about the deed
Well, it goes
restriction
the
when
other
you got
way
6
too.
kids.
It goes the other way. I've known people that take that, a big living room, divide it up,
They make a-
and make a washroom and a
Right.
workshop out of it, and they're breaking their permit because they've driven it into another room.
Right. But realistically, there's no enforcement of that either,
No.
and you can go sell the house and it says it's a 5-bedroom house and you go in and say, it's 5 bedrooms, but geez, we could put little Jimmy in this room over here and nobody's gonna tell anybody. And as far as tearing the wall down to make it 1 bedroom instead of 2, I've done construction, it's easier to put that wall back up than just to take it down. So I think we need to be realistic about this too. So from my perspective, you'd like to limit the footprint, I understand, I disagree with it, but I don't think this is sufficient to describe whether that space can realistically be considered not a bedroom.
Isn't that defined somewhere? It's not defined? I would
What's
think
that?
that, what a bedroom is?
From a legal
Yeah.
perspective?
Yeah,
It's
so
gotta
if
be
it's,
over 70 feet,
yeah,
it has to have privacy, and it has to have a window. Those
Over
are the
7 feet
3
up.
main things. But you're also, that 70 feet has to be a certain ceiling height, like,
7
say you
feet.
wanted to do something in your attic, and the roof came right down like this, well, that's measured 7 feet.
ah,
Just like that, so that, the room may be quite a bit bigger, but you got the roof through it. So the space is just where it meets that
A lot of people
criteria.
sleep in this room.
But I've seen realistically, I know people who come in and they wanna do the room above their garage is a big playroom with cathedral
Right.
ceilings. Oh, it'll be another bedroom, so they put a drop ceiling in. Doesn't change the use of the room. And we can pretend it does, but it doesn't.
Well, I want to make the suggestion that, I gotta see where Jim's going. I'd like to see him maybe make a night when he comes in, and we talk about it, see what's the best way to go, because I think he was looking, and I was under the understanding that there's so much construction going on in town, especially like up at Durkee's. It sounded to me when those people were in here, they were gonna look at doing a whole bunch of them, about half of them, as doing deed restrictions and finished basements.
But we had also the guy from Gray Farm Road that was existing,
Yeah.
Chandra.
Well, we had the guy next to me that was existing too, but the whole idea is, we kinda liked it that way, and I made comment on it, was the fact that while they're doing it, when they're building the house, it's gonna be all done to specifications
I agree.
of the town of Littleton. Whereas in going forward, when someone wants to finish it, they do it yourself type of thing, it's probably not gonna meet the same criteria. So maybe that was what he was thinking of, so that he could come into something like that, and everybody's gonna be cookie cutter. This house is gonna be, a finished basement, this one's big enough, this is gonna be a finished basement. He probably figured, why have 17 of them come in before us, so. Maybe not if maybe he wouldn't come in, but he could give us some idea what his thinking was.
We had have this
When
discussion
would you want him to come in? Next
Well,
month?
he does
after the election.
Boy Scouts and all that stuff, so it's kind of relying on it, whether he has the time to come in, because they conflict with his Boy Scout activities.
Well, if you wanted to talk to him, we make arrangements, they come, you can meet him at the office.
Well, we need to be reasonable with Jimmy as a life outside of this, so.
No, when he comes here.
Yeah.
Whenever he comes. Like,
Why don't you talk to him? You're chairman.
No, if you want me to talk, I'll
Yeah.
talk to him.
Tell him what our
Tell
thoughts
him-
were.
Yeah, tell him that,
And I will say, there may
somebody,
be definitions of bedroom, but it should be in the policy, so when people read it, they know what it is.
well, it sounds
Yeah.
like you wanna tighten it up too, so we take that definition and maybe put a couple more
If
things
there's an
in.
existing one, that maybe we should discuss that, but I do think we need to discuss what space would qualify or wouldn't, whether it's new or
But you gotta
existing.
get out of him too, because he's out seeing this stuff a lot, to see
Yeah.
exactly how much is not new construction, but, add on.
Yep,
okay.
that sounds
All I
good.
have to say on
Okay,
that.
discussion, John, anything else?
Nope, I think,
Before you get mad at me? No,
I'm
nothing
not
else?
mad at you, buddy.
I wanna,
What about you?
I
I'm
wanna
fine.
talk about 63. I was reading that here
Yeah,
again.
go
I
ahead.
meant to not. He says he apologized for the lack of clarification with the situation. Let me try again.
Clarity is what he meant.
Yeah, so I don't know.
No problem.
It says,
I'm not
and he
moving.
talks about the 5-bedroom house, and the assessor's record showed it as a 5-bedroom. The plan was submitted for application listed as a 5-bedroom, so leaching area is large enough for 5-bedroom. Okay, so that sounds good. But then he goes, I wasn't the primary person involved with this permit. Based on the assessor's records for the house, no old Board of Health permit exists.
Uh-oh.
And then he says, I would not feel comfortable changing the existing permit issued more than 20 years ago. He said one doesn't exist.
Yeah, I agree.
don't
When I read
understand
this,
that.
he didn't clarify.
Yeah. This was to clarify what he said before. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm confused.
There's apparently no Board of Health permit. But then he says he doesn't feel comfortable changing the existing permit issued more than 20 years ago.
So,
But I had thought we addressed this thing and we put in the idea that some kind of wording about that, yeah, we agree that it's 5-bedroom dwelling, maybe I'm thinking of someone else.
But he's
I
got a
thought-
4-bedroom system, right?
No, 5.
He's got 5.
the problem is, so if you go to the previous paragraph, it says the,
Permit issued for the replacement stated was for a
For a
4-bedroom
four-bedroom
house, and
house.
his office got that information from the owners when they
you
completed
complete
the
the
permit
permit
application.
application, right?
That's where I'm confused.
Yeah.
Right, so that permit says it's 4, but even though the assessor's records
Says
listed
5.
as 5, the plan submitted with the current permit application says it's 5, and the leaching area is large enough for a 5.
So as long as the new system can cover a 5, I don't really care.
I don't understand, yeah, that's,
Yeah, but I don't understand why, you know, he says he doesn't feel comfortable changing the existing permit she issued more than 20 years ago. That wasn't there anyways.
Well, no, he says that 20 years ago was a permit for a 4-bedroom system,
Right.
even though it's listed
Ah.
as a five-bedroom
Right.
house. Okay? The new system is a 5-bedroom system, as I understand it.
That's what it said.
And Jim, for some reason, is uncomfortable. In order to address the conflict, I wasn't the primary person involved in the permit, but based on the assessor's record, blah, 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 and the plan submitted with the permit application, I don't have a problem with the use of the house as a 5-bedroom dwelling.
But I
So
thought we
I'm cool
addressed
with them
this
there.
one
In
before.
order to address the
It was a
conflict, I would recommend a letter get placed in the file to address this
I think
discrepancy.
somebody came in, remember?
no, but I think it was a different house.
I would
It's the
not
same
feel
thing.
comfortable changing the
Oh,
I
existing
think it
permit
was-
issued more than 20 years
It
ago.
sounds familiar with what
So the
he-
existing permit issued 20 years ago is for 4-bedroom. They
Right.
put a new system in for a
For
5-bedroom.
5-bedroom.
So long as the new system can handle the flow for a
Five.
5-bedroom, I'm not sure why we would
But
care.
he says no old Board of Health permit exists.
Yeah, I think we need some clarification. I don't get it either.
I
I'll
just,
talk with him, Gino.
I'll make them, to give us another note, how's that?
See if you
Okay.
can clarify the clarity.
Okay? Clarify it, the clarity.
Clarity to clarify.
All right,
I don't,
check in, because I won't see you anymore.
I gotta go one
Oh,
more.
that's right, I gotta see
You
him
got one
until
more?
May. I'm gonna
Don't-
get stuck with you for another month.
Don't,
I feel the same way, Gino.
one more meeting.
All right.
you might have to hold an ad hoc
The
meeting.
discussion is over? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, I close the meeting.
Oh, wait, I have a question.
So-
Sorry.
Sure.
So I was just looking through these files, and there are water quality reports for Shaker Lane, the septic system there. Does anyone check these against the requirements?
I think those will be checked.
Where are you,
For the correspondence, it's not in our
Yeah.
packet, maybe you could share that
So
with
there's
Peter.
a,
Jake Lane has its own system, and we have a updated report on
Yes.
basically that.
so this is the
it's the only
February.
one that's got its own,
February 2017 Innovative/Alternative Technology Treatment System Report with lab analysis report from the certified laboratory. But all this is the results, and I don't see what the criteria are. And I'd have to look it up, but it's got 8,100 fecal coliform in the effluent, 27.9 ammonia. So I don't know what the criteria are, and I just wanted to make sure somebody's checking it.
I think it, I think,
who issued that,
The DP thing with the alternative system.
It's
isn't it?
Nephiotis,
association.
Nephiotosis McRae and Associates.
Who is it sent to?
It is sent to, yes, Regional Wastewater Program
So
Chief.
we were CC'd on it, so I believe this is an alternative system DP has oversight on.
But I assume that there's criteria for it, and I'm just thinking we should be, when they issue this report, they should have a table, the criteria should be on the table. Or if there are no criteria, it needs to have a cover sheet that says, you know, why they're
I
doing this.
suspect the issue is they send it to DP who sets the criteria and knows it, and we're just a CC on there, so.
Or nobody's looking at it, so
That's
it
possible.
would be
DP.
great if we could ask them to just put a cover sheet in
well, you
to,
you got several of these places that they go out and do inspections on.
Yeah.
Pond and,
So the issue is it's not our, its report isn't in response to our requirements, it's DEP's.
uh-huh,
So I
but,
think
but it's,
we can certainly
it's
ask.
it's a town-owned septic
Can I see it,
system.
please?
So it would probably be a good idea for us to keep an eye on it.
I don't,
well, we
that
have
doesn't
town.
sound,
It's standard practice, all they have to do is put a fly sheet in.
yeah, I don't, that sounds like a reasonable request for them to do.
Has been examined by already.
DP doesn't have a lot of staff, you know, maybe might not ever get looked at.
I see that.
Or
They might argue that, but I'm fine with it.
Or it's rubber stamped.
Look, it's rubber stamp here, look at it.
Let me see. Some of them,
They've
if
been
I
checked.
remember right, it's when they fall out of line, out of the,
It's not any more effort for the consultant to do that, just say what the criteria is.
Or even a statement saying that these are
within
reviewed
limits.
and within the limits. I don't
I'd
even
rather
think-
see the criteria
Well,
in the statement.
Yeah.
Wanted me to read it, be interested to see what it was for February, so they must do this monthly.
Is there a way we can ask that that's done? I don't know who they
It's
report
published
to.
right-
Oh, you could call yourself, it wouldn't hurt, call them and ask them, say, you know, you're on Bolton Board of Health and
Okay,
you're in the process of looking at some of the things, and you are curious to see what a threshold is on some of their tests and stuff.
Give it back.
You might start with DEP, because they should have
no,
criteria.
it's the consultant, these guys.
I know,
It's every-
but they're held to DEP criterion.
Yeah, no, I know, but they should be putting it in here, they're issuing the report.
When mention, when you call Shelley, mention it, and she will give you that again. You can make all the call you want.
Yeah, so it might be, it's probably the Littleton School Department.
Okay? Okay,
Lisa, you
anything
got any
else?
questions?
Any question?
Is your system working?
I was, yeah, I think so. I was just listening to what Erin was saying about narrowing your, description of what, additional living space would be. And you were saying something about how our taxpayers are paying a lot of money. I think sometimes too, when it's narrowed down, if their criteria doesn't fit that narrowness, they're still gonna have to hire somebody to define what they're doing,
Yeah.
so.
When I say narrow, there are existing criteria such as window space,
Yeah.
and privacy,
But
and
if you narrow it down to the existing space or new footprint addition, I think somewhere or another, if your people may not have, it still may not fit the narrowed down,
and they may not,
description.
but many
You'll
will.
still have to get somebody to come in and help them.
But that's existing criteria. But having someone come in and help them, they're gonna need for the plans anyway. Paying them to come after hours to sit in a board meeting, that's another cost.
Yeah, they have to have a professionally done plan. No more sketching out of something on paper, though we had a few people do that.
You know. So, yeah, but that doesn't mean they're never gonna have professional help. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
can we reasonably, without putting anything in jeopardy, save them the trip to here with their paid, those guys don't do that for free.
Wow.
Okay?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.